Okay, strategic implementation of environmental responsibility. Okay, so organizations address sustainability issues differently among themselves. Okay, so some companies have low commitment towards sustainability. Some companies have medium commitment towards sustainability. Others have high commitment towards sustainability. So there are several dimensions towards this commitment, towards the measure of commitment. Okay, so those companies that have low commitment, they deal only with existing problems. So they have existing sustainability problems. They address those problems only. That is their only effort. Okay, but those with high commitment, they have strategic programs to address environmental issues. So they make it a program. Okay, they make programs that address environmental issues. Some other companies that in the middle, they just attempt to comply with environmental laws. Okay, so what they do is they just make sure that they comply with the law, and that's it. Okay, but at least it's better than the low commitment. Though the low commitments only when they are brought to court, for example, for a certain sustainability sustainability, they don't comply with certain laws and they are brought to court because of that, then they address that problem. Then there are the next dimension of commitment is with regards to plans for anticipated problems. So for the low commitment companies, they only limited plans for anticipated problems. The medium commitment companies deals with issues that could cause public relation problems, whereas the high commitment companies views environment as an opportunity to advance the business strategy. So the way they look at business, the issues, sustainability issues is different. Okay, the high commitment, they see sustainability issue as an opportunity for its strategy. Okay, the medium commitment uses looks at sustainability just as a bare minimum where they need to deal in order to avoid public relations problems. Okay, and there are certain other commitment dimensions as well. So basically, a company, we can assess a company's commitment towards sustainability, looking at these various dimensions and measuring where is their stance in terms of their commitment. Okay, so strategic implementation of environmental responsibility includes recycling initiatives. So recycling, is a reprocessing of materials, okay, for reuse. Okay, reprocessing of materials for reuse. For example, steel, aluminium, paper, glass, rubber, and some plastics. These items can be reprocessed for use. Okay, and when recycling, the good thing about recycling is that these things are reused, therefore they don't go wasted. So if they don't go wasted, there are several prongs of benefit. One thing is that there will be less need of using unrenewable resources, for example paper. So if there is no recycling, then companies will need to definitely will need to use paper, but then they will use, so more trees will need to be cut in order to produce paper. However, through recycling, when paper is recycled, then they can be reused. Companies can buy papers that have been recycled. so less trees will need to be cut down. On the other hand, papers that are not recycled, they are thrown away, not recycled, then they may pollute the land. Okay, they may disrupt the ocean because of the wastage. So there are several benefits for recycling. Okay, reducing the consumption of unrenewable resources, as well as reducing the waste that pollutes the environment. Food waste can be used to create renewable energy. Okay, so there are initiatives that turn food wastage into renewable energy. Companies and local and regional governments are finding ways to recycle water. So even water, people are thinking about how to recycle water. And then stakeholder assessment requires acknowledging and actively monitoring the environmental concerns of all legitimate stakeholders. Okay, so an organization that takes an active role, takes a high commitment towards sustainability, will make a stakeholder assessment where they will acknowledge the environmental concerns of all legitimate stakeholders. Remember, in our early classes, we talked about the various stakeholders towards ethical issues. So an organization that has a high commitment towards sustainability will look at stakeholder assessment, will do stakeholder assessment among its stakeholders. There must have a process in place for identifying and prioritizing the many claims and stakes on its business, and for dealing with trade-offs related to the impact on different stakeholders. So there are different stakeholders. Okay, companies have different stakeholders, and sometimes the needs of the stakeholders are different. Okay, so in terms of the sustainability, different stakeholders will have different needs with regards to the sustainability issue. Okay, so it is impossible for a company to satisfy the claim of all the stakeholders. So they will need to decide, they will need to see the trade-off, they will need to assess which stakeholders' needs that need to be prioritized and which can be put lower in terms of the priority. So managers need to conduct research, assess risks, and communicate with stakeholders about their respective concerns. So the point is they need to take into account the stakeholders' perspective, although in the end the company may put that importance to the side, may take some of the other needs of the stakeholders as a priority rather than some other stakeholders. Okay, but if they only take one stakeholder as point of reference, and they neglect all the requirements or needs of the other stakeholders with regards to sustainability, then they will have a problem. Okay, they need to look at they need to address if not all, but majority of those stakeholders. And so therefore they need to be a willingness to acknowledge and openly address potential conflicts. So there will be conflicts of needs between the stakeholders. So companies need to acknowledge those conflicts and address those potential conflicts. So an organization, we need to do risk analysis. Okay. Okay, risk analysis. What is the risk of their actions regard to certain decision making? So if they do certain actions based on certain decisions, so what is the risk that they may face out of that? Okay, so they need to do this risk analysis. Through industry and government research, an organization can usually identify environmental issues that relate to manufacturing, marketing, and consumption, and use patterns associated with its products. Okay, it is possible to assess the environmental risks associated with business decisions. The real difficulty is measuring the costs and benefits. Okay, so yeah, so it is possible to assess environmental risks associated with the business decisions. So any decisions that they may need to make, they can quite easily, they can possibly assess what is the risk on the environment. However, it is quantifying that risk in terms of the cost and benefit. That is the difficult part. Therefore, assessing the risk is okay, but prioritizing the risk, ranking the risk, which risk is higher than the other, which risk needs to be addressed more seriously, that is difficult because of the difficulty in measuring the cost and benefit in more financial terms. Many environmental decisions involve trade-offs for various stakeholders' risks. Okay, so there will be trade-offs. Okay, you cannot satisfy everyone. Okay, so companies take up the strategic environmental audit. Okay, so when they implement sustainability actions, they are also subjected to audit. So audit of efforts reports the result to all interested stakeholders. So any effort taken by the companies will be audited, and the results will be shared with the stakeholders. And organizations may use globally accepted standards, ISO 14000, which is a comprehensive set of environmental standards that encourage a cleaner, safer, and healthier world, developed by the International Organizations for Standardization. Okay, so in order to structurize or institutionalize the sustainability efforts, organizations may choose to adopt ISO 14000. Okay, so when they follow the ISO 40000, they will have a proper structure, a proper documentation, they will follow proper guidelines in order to be more sustainable. And by fulfilling that ISO, they can claim in their publication that they are ISO 14000 compliant, and that can be a basis among the stakeholders to evaluate, to assess the level of sustainability practices of the company, that the company is having sustainability practices. Evaluation of a firm's environmental, social, and governance program is important. So the framework with regards to sustainability, which is environmental, social, and governance, the evaluation should be useful for assessing the sustainability level of an organization. Okay, that's it for our lecture. Thank you very much.